your Savior reigns. Let men their songs employ, while fields and floods, rocks, hills and plains, repeat the sounding joy. Repeat the sounding joy. We will sing joy. We will sing joy. We will sing joy. Joy to the world. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love. We will sing joy. We will sing joy. We will sing joy. Joy to the world. We will sing joy. We will sing joy. We will sing joy. Joy to the world. We will sing He rescues, he rescues, he rescues and delivers. 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 He is the Lord of heaven. He is the Lord of earth. He has the power to conquer anything. He rescues, he rescues, he rescues and delivers. He rescues, he rescues, he rescues and delivers. He is the Lord of heaven. He is the Lord of earth. He has the power to conquer anything. He rescues, he rescues, he rescues and delivers. He rescues, he rescues, he rescues and delivers. He rescues, he rescues, he rescues and delivers. He rescues, he rescues, he rescues and
Mary and Joseph's baby, God's son, was a few days old when Mary and Joseph named him Jesus, just like the angel had told them to do before the baby was even born. One day, Mary and Joseph took Jesus to the temple in Jerusalem. Mary and Joseph wanted to obey God and his law. Part of the law that God gave Moses said, if a woman's first child is a boy, his parents must dedicate him to the Lord. The law also said, the child's parents should sacrifice 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons for the child. At the temple, Mary and Joseph presented Jesus to the Lord and offered 2 birds as a sacrifice. Another man was at the temple. His name was Simeon, and he lived in Jerusalem. Simeon loved God, and he trusted in God's promise to send a Messiah to save people from sin. God's Spirit was with Simeon, and God told Simeon that he would not die until he saw the one who would rescue people from their sin. That day, God's Spirit had led Simeon to the temple. Simeon saw Jesus and picked him up in his arms. God's Spirit showed Simeon that Jesus was the promised Messiah. Simeon was so happy. He praised God and said, Lord, you can let me die now. You kept your promise, and I have seen the one who will save people from sin. Simeon said that Jesus would save God's people, the Israelites, and Jesus would also save people from other nations. Mary and Joseph were amazed at what Simeon said about Jesus. Simeon blessed Mary and Joseph. He told Mary that being Jesus' mother would be a very good thing, but it would also be very hard. Some people would love Jesus, but others would hate him. Things were going to happen that would make Mary very sad. A woman named Anna was also at the temple. Anna was a prophetess, a female prophet. Anna's husband had died, and Anna was very old. She stayed at the temple and worshiped God all the time. She prayed and fasted. Anna came up to Simeon, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and she began to thank God. Anna talked about Jesus to people who were waiting for God to keep his promise to send a Savior. She told them the good news. The Savior was here. Mary and Joseph finished dedicating Jesus and making sacrifices to God. They obeyed God's law. Then they went back home to Nazareth. Jesus grew up and was strong and healthy. He was wise, and God was happy with him. Throughout the Old Testament, God promised the arrival of a king who would redeem God's people. When Jesus arrived, Simeon and Anna knew he was the promised Messiah. Today, we have faith that Jesus is God's Son. We can trust Jesus for our salvation, and like Simeon and Anna, we should share the good news.
Good morning, family. It's Pastor Joaquin. Our lesson title is Jesus Was Dedicated, and our Bible passage is Luke 2. Imagine how happy Simeon and Anna must have felt when they realized that the promised Savior had been born. I bet they were overjoyed. What would it be like walking into the temple like any other day, worship, and seeing God's promised Savior as a little baby when you arrived? I bet that was incredible. Seeing Jesus was important for multiple reasons. Obviously, it's important because Jesus is God's Son. Anna, Simeon, Mary, and Joseph got to see God face to face when he was a baby. Second, seeing Jesus was important because God's people had waited so long for Isaiah's prophecies to be fulfilled. More than 700 years had passed since Isaiah told about God's promise. Like so many others, Simeon and Anna waited for God to send Jesus, the promised Savior. Jesus' whole purpose for coming was to rescue us from sin and to restore our relationship with God. People had anticipated this king for so long. His birth and dedication were a huge reason to celebrate. Finally, seeing Jesus was important for knowing that after all this time, God's perfect rescuer from sin had arrived. Soon, people would no longer have to sacrifice animals and perform rituals to pay for their sin. Jesus was dedicated and set aside to live a perfect life, to honor God and serve his people by paying for their sin on the cross. Throughout the Old Testament, God promised the arrival of a king who would redeem God's people. When Jesus arrived, Simeon and Anna knew he was the promised Messiah. Today, we have faith that Jesus is God's Son. We can trust Jesus for our salvation. Has there been a day that you've trusted in Jesus for salvation? If not, today can be that day. Now, family, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he look on you with favor and give you his sweet peace. You are loved.